From the inner sense of time comes the ancient poet's rhyme, bringing us the master key to open up the mystery. From the depth of time and space, we arrive in quiet grace, finding what is meant to be as we explore the mystery, pouring forth from days gone by. We can hear the poet sigh from the depth of ecstasy, moving into mystery. Hello, and welcome again to Creative Connections. I'm Gary Blanchard, and today my guest is Karen Swan Otto.
Hi.
And you are a fabric collage artist.
I am a fabric collage artist.
Wonderful. My wife and I saw your work at the Peter Sham Art Show, and we're just really drawn by it and impressed by it. So
Thank you.
I was glad to be able to connect with you and get you on the show. So let's start. How did you get involved with creating art?
Well, with creating art in general, I've always been artistic. My parents are artistic, and I remember painting with oil paints on the back porch when I was young, just having that all set up for me, and just always was good at drawing. And you know, when you're in school, in grade school and such, they identify pretty quickly, oh, you're the one that's good at art. So I always just knew that. But as far as the fabric collage goes, I was an art major in college, and I had a teacher who didn't like my paintings. Now, mind you, he painted with glitter, so I didn't take that too badly, but he said, is there anything else you can make images with in a painterly way? And my mom had taught my sister and I to sew all our own clothes when I was about 12. So I had fabric and sewing skills, and I thought, well, why not just try that? And he really liked it.
Okay.
The first one I did was Takeoff on the Swing by Fragonard, which is a real Baroque, piece. And he liked that so much that then I went on and did one of The Rape of the Sabian Women by Rubens, which is another convoluted kind of thing. And then a friend had a baby, and I made them a baby blanket, and then I just got so much positive feedback from that beginning that I just kept doing it.
Okay, so let's look at an example of what you do here.
Oh, that's my most recent, yeah.
Okay, so you can see the face, particularly the eyes.
Yeah.
But there's just so much going on. How do you figure out what fabric to use for what part?
Okay, well, this piece is based loosely on my favorite picture of me in my 20s. So I call it Lost Youth. And everything in this picture, except for this neck piece, is flowers and leaves. So it kind of is representational of, full bloom of youth, that kind of thing. So I was at a storytelling festival in Tennessee, and I had brought my fabric, and I started I wanted to limit my palette, so I had these circles. Well, this is one piece of fabric that I cut into circles and then just repeated, and then I started in with the hair, and then I just started adding, basically filling in broad areas of the face, and then that was about all I had time for when I was at the festival. But then when I got home, I was able to look back and forth between the picture I was working from and sort of start to fine-tune it. And then at a certain point I said, I want to leave it a little bit, loose.
Yeah. What I like about this is there's an abstract quality to it, yet that it's a person. And, that's just amazes me.
Oh, thank you.
How you can take these diverse pieces and kind of put them together. The eyes in particular fascinate me, and how you figured how to do that.
Well, what I will do, and if we get to the Hansel and Gretel piece, I'll talk about this more, is when I have an idea in mind of what I want that area to look like, I'll just start looking through different pieces of fabric until I find a piece that
Okay.
works. Yeah.
Okay. Let's take a look at another here.
Yeah. This belongs to my daughter in Charlemont. Its title is Thoughts Become Things. Do you have the other circular one after this? Because it's a reverse of...
Oh, okay. It's somewhere
Okay.
within the section, but we'll...
But it's a woman, and she's got this idea, it's kind of hard to see probably, of she's got a knight in her hands. And so
Okay.
she's got this idea of wanting something, and then her thoughts flow around the circle and rise.
That is absolutely amazing. And you can see a little child up there.
Yeah, other thoughts that filter in with it.
Yeah,
People like to see images that they recognize. So even when I'm doing mandalas is something that I enjoy doing, and other
Right.
abstract things, I do like to throw in images because, like you said with the face, people will see a face. If there's a face there, no matter how abstract, they
right.
will, the mind searches to see a face.
Sure,
And so
yeah,
it's-
it's a good point. This piece in the center reminds me of some of the material you find on saris
Oh, yeah.
from India.
Yeah.
Very nice. Let's see if let's...
Okay, well, no, it's all right. Well, no, there it is.
Okay, yeah, so
Okay.
we'll come back to the others. But,
Okay.
So this is a reverse.
Well, it's, on the one that we were looking at, I was using the right side. I don't know if you know much about fabric, but there's the side you're supposed to see is called the
Right,
right side.
okay.
And the side you're not supposed to be is called the wrong side. So this is the right side of the fabric, and this is the wrong side of the fabric.
Oh, okay.
So the other one, I think I flipped it and used the one in the circle and the other one on the inside. And this one is kind of similar in that, I forget if I said it's called Once Upon a Dream. And there's a woman in the center who's dreaming, and this is one of the mandalas that sort of
Okay.
radiates out from
And
what
this is the reverse side of the other piece we were looking at.
It's not.
Oh, no.
No, I just meant that I reversed where I used the right
Oh.
side and wrong side of this
Okay.
fabric is
Okay.
what I meant.
Now I got
Okay.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we will go back to, well, actually, let's go back to this one for
Okay.
a moment. And
This is Rapunzel,
yeah.
and this is the original Grimm version. Now, there's a witch here with long red hair, and the prince climbing up to see her. And in the original Grimm version, when Rapunzel's mother is pregnant, she sees these Rapunzels, which are a kind of cabbage, in the witch's garden, and makes her husband go get them. And the witch catches him, and she says, "I'll let you have them. I won't kill you if you promise me your daughter." That's why the witch has her up. And so these are the Rapunzels, or cabbages, at the
Okay.
bottom. And then when she catches the prince, who was attracted by her singing, she says, "Oh, you're climbing up to see your little bird," and there's a bird up there, and she says, "But the cat has caught you," and there's a cat behind her, "and I'm going to scratch your eyes out." And she throws him down, and his eyes, he's blinded by the brambles down below. And then she gets rid of Rapunzel too, and he wanders around blind for 2 years, and then he hears her singing and finds her in this desert place where she's born his 2 children. This is
Okay.
the original version,
Yeah,
and it's
I don't-
all in there.
That wasn't in the Disney
No,
version,
no,
was
it wasn't. So, yeah, so that's Rapunzel, the original.
Okay.
And that, I just really like this one because it's not strictly a mandala, which are usually
Right.
symmetrical,
Yeah.
but it just I did it around the time that I retired, and it feels to me like letting go. And I really like Rothko, the painter, a lot,
Okay.
where he uses the 3 blocks of color.
Okay.
And so I kind of had been wanting to use that concept in a piece for a while. And even though he doesn't usually use pastels, I was using pastels, and I found I didn't really have a lot of pastel fabric. So I had this peacock, and again, it was really bright colors, so I used the wrong side of the fabric. So it's much more, and then I put it in a window so that the sun would kind of fade everything
out. All right.
It's just letting go, which is what I did a lot of when I retired, just letting go of all that stuff.
You know, if I were to try to read into this,
okay, what do you see?
what I see is that this is much less dense than some of the others. And hearing that this is, like a post-retirement, it's kind of like adding space.
Right, exactly.
So,
see? You don't have to have it explained to get it.
Yeah. So
and again, there's a little girl there, and a person. There are little images where if you stay with it long enough, you'll see things.
And then of course the flower there in the center, and like I say, your work just really grabs the attention. It's hard, I'm sure, for the audience to get a real feel for the density of the work, seeing it just on this screen, on their screen.
Right.
So I did get you to bring a piece with you, and this is
the second panel of an 8-panel series that I hope we'll have time to see. The stages of a woman's life, and this is the first panel after before birth. And at this age, children, little babies, don't understand that there's a difference between them and their parents. They don't understand that that's a separate entity, especially since they've been part of her for so long. And so I intentionally just kind of made it blur where the baby, the baby, in case you don't see it, the baby's head is here, and the mother's head is here, and the father's leaning over them. And I try to use the patterns that are in the fabric to create, rather than, because earlier on, in earlier stages of my work, I did a lot of embroidery or using fabric that was already printed. And then now I try to do more suggestive. I try to find the images in the printed fabric that isn't intended.
What I can see here that's harder to see in the pictures is just all the different textures. Here's something that's a little almost furry. Here's something that's a little more woven. Some pieces with little bits of glitter in it. And you can see that how everything is pieced together.
Now, a quilter, because a lot of people will say, oh, you do quilting. This isn't quilting. It's not quilted. This series is the only time I've ever done any hand sewing, because I wanted the sort of patchwork effect to represent moments in time. But then I cut them up and sewed them on. But people who quilt will only use, they won't use all these different kinds of fabric, because as you can see, some things buckle, some comes out, some are, but I really like the different textures and the way that they work with each other.
Absolutely amazing work.
Thank you.
So, where do you get ideas from when you sit down to do something?
I'll sketch, or early on I worked on commission. Earlier when I was first out of college, different people were interested in having pieces, and so if somebody tells me what they want, and when we get back, I said when you were going through them before we came on, there's one piece that has a really interesting story behind it.
So let's...
This one was a commission by a family friend, and she had gone to Europe and was in, I want to say, Notre Dame, when it was her daughter's birthday back home, and she was feeling really homesick. So she lit a candle under a statue of the Virgin Mary and said a prayer for her daughter. This one's called Mary's Blessing, and the woman is also named Mary, Mary Thorne. And so it means that Mary is blessing her, but also Mary's apostrophe S blessing. Right. And she said that after she lit that candle, she just had this feeling of calm and love, and that it was.
Wow,
now,
great.
I just want to point out one more thing, if you can see it. Up here, above the statue, is a frieze, the seasons. Here's spring, who is a baby,
Okay.
suckling on the breast of summer, who has her hair thrown back like rays of the sun.
Okay.
Fall is a woman with grapevines and a black veil, and then winter is an old woman with sort of snowflakes falling.
Yeah, all right.
And that's kind of a mini presage to when I did the big series that this one is from. It was.
What it really amazes me is that the candles and the flames, that must have taken a lot of work.
Well, it all is, but I find it very soothing, almost hypnotic or meditative, because it's all hand sewn, to sit and sew. You know, the exciting part is pinning the pieces on, is choosing the fabrics and pinning them on.
Right.
But the bulk of it is sewing and sewing and sewing and sewing by hand.
Okay.
So.
And I don't think the audience could probably see it, but there's like a textured column on either side here that really sort of gives you that feeling of the columns of a cathedral.
Right. And there's a stained glass window behind Mary that was a piece I didn't even know I had until I started doing this, and I'm looking through fabric. Stained glass window.
Where do you get all your fabric pieces?
The fabric for well, like I said, when we were growing up, we all sewed our own clothes, and you save the scraps. And then there was a place called Hands on Fabric in Orange, where I was a seamstress for a while in my 20s. And then, but now, if we get to Hansel and Gretel, I need a gingerbread for a gingerbread house. Went through all my fabric, didn't have anything, so I went to Hazel's in Orange, which has a different name now, but if you live in that area, know what Hazel's is. And went through, and I found a Hawaiian shirt that was perfect for the gingerbread. It was like, I found it. So
okay, let's. This is really, really nice.
Thank you. I did this one when I was chaperoning a trip to Washington, D.C., and we had a long bus ride, and so those are the kind of times I like to have.
Okay.
And we went to the National Air and Space Museum, and I got a T-shirt and then cut off that piece of it. So
I was wondering how you got that National Air and Space Museum. So that was from a.
But that kind of anchors it in my mind. But this is like the one that I called Letting Go, where it just this feeling of time and space, and I don't want to get too crunchy granola, but I love to meditate to this piece. I can sit in front of this piece.
I'm an aging hippie,
and
so I can really kind of, to me, it brings back a feeling in the 60s and kind of that openness. And, you can imagine, any minute the Beatles are going to come across in a yellow submarine looking for the blue meanies.
And a squirrel for no particular reason.
Okay, Because.
Here we go, Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel.
Okay. So I think when you were going through just checking to see that you had them all, I think in a couple more pieces, again, I don't have a sense of where we are time-wise. I hope we'll get to it. But the witch is up here watching them. And if we get to Hansel and Gretel, if we get to Little Red Riding Hood, I use the same image for Little Red Riding Hood, and in that one she's this young girl, but in this one I took the same face, it was printed on a fabric, and I gave her the furrows around the eyes and tiny red French knots to make her eyes kind of crazy, and switch the hand around so it could be coming out the window, and and again, the faces, the only thing that's hand done on the faces, I gave him a pupil, just that one black spot to give him a pupil. And the rest was all, I drew what I wanted, and then again, I went around with this fabric of flowers that I had until I found what looked like, the cheek and the eye and the whole thing. So that's all just already printed on the fabric, and his hair is petals of a flower also.
Okay, yeah. And what I really like is how her scarf, her vest, and then the hem of the bottom of the skirt all match, which seems like just how people would dress. And then all the pies and the cupcakes and the cookies and the window and the jelly beans, and even like the stones along the path. Just
those were at the bottom of the last one. That's one thing I like to do. I like to use fabrics from piece to piece to piece. Just that sense of continuity.
Right,
that's just a little personal thing I do.
And then a little rabbit there in the corner. So let's take a look at another here. This is the one that Carol and I saw at Petersham, and this just really was so beautiful.
Thank you.
That we stopped to look, and we probably stood looking at this for like about 10 minutes, and probably came back to look at it once or twice. So much going on here. This gives a feeling of a stairway, and yet it could be a path. All of the paintings on the wall.
In perspective.
Which is really cool. But then you also get the feeling like you're indoors, but you're outside. Maybe a little harder to see for the folks at home. But these look like they're raised bits of material for the tree branches. And what this is
a girl climbing up the. Okay, this is a bedtime story that my father told us. And he had different ones that he would tell over and over. And this one was about princesses who were allowed to go anywhere in the castle except the tower. And every time he told it, he had a different princess trying a different way, like sneaking up the stairs or climbing up the ivy. But then if they were actually able to peek inside, they would come down and their hair had started turning gray and they were unable to speak, to say what it was they had seen. And so, the little ones are afraid and the older ones are consoling them. And if you look here, I use the fabric to indicate that there might be something behind an open door, or somebody looking out a window, or even, and this photograph doesn't show it well, but even maybe a witch flying across the moon.
And then there's like a little girl just sitting there, almost like she's just watching what's going on.
But now see, nobody except my brothers and sisters would know the story behind that.
Right, because this is not a fairy tale
like some of the...
a story that your father would tell, which is really nice because it makes it personal. But just an absolutely amazing piece of work. And I'm hoping people sometimes get the chance to see some of these live. Where do you show your work?
I had a show at the Royalston Library that was up, was it last year or the year before? It was all the pieces that I'd been making after I retired. And it was up, it was only supposed to be for a month or two, but then she wanted, it was in the children's library and they have a lot of children's programming. And she asked if they could keep it up during the summer. So I said, sure. I mean, what was I going to do with them? And then the person who was supposed to hang a show after that was over, was out of the country for some reason. So then so it was there for like 3/4 of a year. Other than that, I show at the Petersham Gallery. I don't really show a lot.
Because this is amazing work that people really should be able to get to see in person because it's wonderful stuff. Here is another just...
and again, abstract. I like to do abstract, although I think people like the figurative stuff more. But this one is a salamander pond, and there's one full salamander, but then there are tails and feet. It's kind of a, you have to look and find them. There's little bits and pieces of, there's a foot right there.
Okay, yeah.
But also just, I like the abstract because I can just react. I'll put some things down and sew them down, and then I can react to what's there and put more things down. And again, I like to limit my palette. This one is mostly blues and greens
Yeah, the colors are,
with the little pops of
this
orange.
is one of those pieces that you look at and you can't help but feel happy.
Yeah.
And feel kind of a sense of hope and openness. Just really, really nice.
Here we go. Little Red Riding Hood with kind of a catch your breath quality to it.
Yeah.
And again, this is the same fabric, the same printed image that I used for the witch in the Hansel and Gretel piece. And then I chose to just do all black and whites except for her red hood. So I had, again, at Hazel's, thrift shop, I found a t-shirt that had wolves on it. So,
Okay.
I chose the one that was howling, and I found another t-shirt that had this sort of sphere on it that I don't know what it was supposed to be, but I thought that would make a great moon. And, the eagle flying. But then other than that, it doesn't really make sense if you look at it as far as the things don't
Right.
really fit together. There are trees and there are
Right.
trees and there are roses and different things. But if you're a young girl, and there's her little basket with her hand, if you're a young girl going through the forest to your grandmother's house, and there's wolves howling, wolves involved somehow, you might not be, it doesn't have to make sense. You're kind of scared.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and the red, it reminds me of those old pictures where they were all black and white except for like one little colored part. And we're running out of time.
Okay. Oh.
But I do want to look.
Yeah. Okay.
This is
The piece.
part of, this piece here. And you can see the size.
Yeah.
So this is an
Takes up a whole
eight-piece,
wall of my house. Yeah.
and this is
Before birth. This is a black spiral out of white. And then all the pieces, the fabric, you'll see fabric in this piece that flows into that one. This is before birth. This is when a young child just doesn't care about nudity. To them, it doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of details in each
Yeah.
one I won't go into. This one, you'll notice the only patchwork in this one is in the mirror because she's identifying herself by what she sees in the mirror.
Okay.
If you want to click, we can just... This is pregnancy, and she's got the fetus and vines and everything. You don't even see her arms and legs or half her face because when you're pregnant, it's just all about the baby. Then this is an older woman who's making a quilt out of all the scraps from the other pieces. And this one is an old woman who's dancing out of her skin, and her arm extends into the white spiral into black, the opposite of the first one. And that spiral also contains fabric from different skin, the fabric I used for different skin tones. And so there, some
Yeah.
awareness after, going
So
into
it's truly the cycle of life.
right.
And
There it
that's
is, the whole
kind
thing
of
together.
a look at the whole thing. Karen, it's been a pleasure having you on.
I'm glad you asked me. Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure being with you again. And I look forward to seeing you again next time on Creative Connections. From the inner sense of time comes the ancient poet's rhyme, bringing us the master key to open up the mystery. From the depth of time and space, we arrive in quiet grace, finding what is meant to be as we explore the mystery, pouring forth from days gone by. We can hear the poet sigh from the depth of ecstasy, moving into mystery.